Hey there guys, this is Sam
And Justin.
at the Survival Review, and it is October 1st.
Oh yeah.
And you know what that means. It's Halloween movie review time.
This is our annual thing where we review a ton of movies this month.
Yep. We always try to get as many in October as we can.
Yep.
And we've got some good ones planned this year. So
starting out with the classic
Hellraiser, which both of us love this movie. This is like, if I were to make like a top 10 horror films of all time, this would probably be on there.
Yes, it definitely would.
I absolutely love this movie. I'm surprised we haven't talked about it before.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the most unique horror movies out there. Because it has such an iconic character like Pinhead attached to it, but it's not like a slasher movie or anything.
No, not at all. It's almost not as much about the evil villain Pinhead and the other Cenobites, and it's more about the people.
Exactly.
Like the dude Frank and the wife of Julie. I can never remember their name. Really? They're the monsters, even though the actual monster, well, I guess Frank is kind of a monster-looking guy, but...
Yeah. But like the Cenobites are kind of just there. Like they're like the gatekeepers of hell, basically, or of this puzzle box. Like
the puzzle box is the central thing of the movie, but the big evil thing is Frank, and he's more being punished by these guys rather than them being the villain. So the plot of the movie follows a character named Frank, who's kind of not so good guy. At the beginning of the movie, he purchases this mysterious puzzle box that has mystical powers, and so while he's messing around with it, he summons these torture demons called Cenobites, and they kill him and take him to hell. So after he dies, we follow Frank's brother Larry and his wife Julia, who move into this new house. It was like a family member's house or something like that, and this is where Frank was when he did his ritual with the puzzle box. They get there, there's like remnants of food and just maggots everywhere, and it's gross. One day when they're moving in the mattress, Larry cuts his hand. Like he like splits it open. It's like, it looks like it doesn't look too bad at first because it's just like a nail, but it's bad. Like blood just drips everywhere, and he ends up going to Julia, who happens to be in Frank's room, and he spills the blood on the floor, which in turn brings Frank back from the dead. Yeah. The only problem is he needs more blood in order to regenerate more. Exactly, because once he gets that little bit of blood, he's back, but he's like just muscles and skeleton. Like he's not a full person. So he needs somebody to bring him people to regenerate back to himself. So enter Larry's wife, Julia, who right before their wedding had an affair with Frank, and she is in love with Frank. So she starts luring men into the house and killing them, giving Frank blood and helping him regenerate more. Yeah. And in the process, Larry's daughter, Kirsty, who Julia is her stepmom, she starts to kind of figure this out, and in turn she tries to stop this from happening. So yeah, any new person who's never actually heard of the plot of this movie would be like, what the hell is that? Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw this, it wasn't what I expected at all. I was expecting kind of just a torture movie. With like Pinhead as the main bad guy. Yeah. Which, once you get into the sequels, it does eventually sort of become that. Yeah, but Pinhead and the other Cenobites are barely in the movie. Yeah, and when they are, honestly, it's not even that focused on Pinhead himself. In fact, the only reason Pinhead is like so like remembered from this movie is because he talks more than everybody else. Yeah. Because the other characters couldn't speak. Yeah, you can tell he's like the lead, like he's the head guy of this. Yeah. And he appears, the Cenobites appear kind of like in the beginning of the movie real briefly, and when Frank is getting tortured and stuff. But then I looked it up, they literally do not appear until an hour into the movie after that. Yeah. There's like a full hour without Pinhead or any of that. And even then, they don't really do a whole lot. Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. No, that's not against the movie at all. It's just the way the movie flows isn't the way you would necessarily. It's one of those things you wouldn't expect because of how like iconic he's become. It's like watching the first Nightmare on Elm Street and realizing that Freddy's not the jokester who's like quipping every time he can. Yeah. He's actually a more sinister character. It's kind of like this because this movie is not about Pinhead. They just used him to market the movie because he's like the only person on the poster. He's not even named Pinhead in the end credits. Nope. It's just lead Cenobites. He didn't get the name until the sequel. And one of the things that really works about this movie is the special effects. Yes. Well, for the most part. The effects in this movie are off and on good. There are some bad ones, but when they're good, they are good. They are incredible. Yeah. The makeup on Frank, when he's just the muscle and tissue, is incredible looking. Like, you can't, it doesn't really feel like it's a guy in a costume. You know, it is.
it's really believable. And even the first scene where he first starts regenerating and he comes out of the ground, he's just like a skeleton. Like, that scene is amazing.
It really is. And, like, when I think of Hellraiser, a lot of people, if they're like, hey, Hellraiser 1, they'll think of Pinhead. Mm-hmm. I think of this guy. He is really memorable in this movie.
That being said, though, there are some effects that don't work. You can tell this movie is a low budget.
Yeah.
The one creature that chases Kirsty in the hallway, where you can see, like, the stuff pushing him along, mm-hmm. You can tell he's supposed to be, like, crawling, like, along the walls.
You can just tell it's on, like, a cart.
Exactly.
And it's not necessarily the worst mm-hmm. effect in the world. It definitely had some cool puppetry to it. Mm-hmm. But overall, it hasn't aged well.
Yeah, and then at the end, when the Cenobites get defeated, first off, it's very underwhelming when they get defeated. Kirsty just presses on a box and they disappear. But the animation on them is very just cartoonish and really just kind of... I read up on it. It's because Clive Barker, the director... They ran out of money at that point, and he was animating it on his own with, like, a buddy over a weekend. So some of the low-budget stuff does kind of show at times in the movie, but when it's good, like, it's really good.
Yeah.
And then the acting is all really solid.
Yeah. There's not really any actors that I would say flubbed anything. Mm-hmm. It was all really, really well done. Mm-hmm.
The actor playing Larry, who was the Scorpio killer in the first Dirty Harry, mm-hmm. He's really good. He's sympathetic at times. Like, you kind of feel bad, like, what happens to him at the end. Yeah. And the fact that Julia is basically cheating on him with his brother, who is now dead. But that's morbid, but, you know. Like, you feel bad for him. He's really good. And then the main hero of the movie, Kirsty, she doesn't come off like your typical horror movie kind of hero, because she feels like a more down-to-earth character. Yeah. Which I really like. They kind of underplay her a little bit. She has a love interest who's just really just there.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have a character.
Honestly, I completely forgot about him until you mentioned it. He shows up. He literally just shows up again in the last scene where she's closing the box on the Cenobites. He just kind of pops in, some stuff falls on him, and he runs out with her. He's
so forgettable that in the sequel, when like she's in the hospital, they just say, "Oh yeah, he went home." That's literally that's how forgettable his character is.
He really didn't even need to be in the movie.
No, but like her character is kind of downplayed and more normal, which I really like. Yeah. Like this movie doesn't play off the typical horror cliches.
No.
Which I really like. And even though we have already talked about it a little bit, Doug Bradley as Pinhead is awesome.
He's fantastic.
I mean, another reason why he's so memorable is that they give him like the best lines in the movie too.
Yep.
We'll tear your soul apart.
From what I heard, like, isn't it true that the other Cenobites were going to have lines, like the Chatter or whatever his name is. They were going to have lines, but they couldn't actually speak through the makeup.
So it's just him and the female Cenobite. Yeah. And originally, Doug Bradley didn't want to play Pinhead, because this was his first movie. He was going to play one of the movers in the beginning who's bringing in the mattress, because he figured it's your first movie, you might as well get your face shown. Yeah. And then he ended up losing out and ended up being cast as Pinhead, which worked out in the end.
Yeah, it definitely did.
But he originally didn't want to play it because he wanted to be able to see his face on screen. But the design of all the Cenobites are awesome.
Yeah, they're seriously really cool.
They're all memorable. From the female one with like her throat is like ripped open to again the Chatter one. It's like keeps chattering, and
then like the fat one that's just
with glasses. Yeah. I don't know what that one is.
Sunglasses for no reason.
Yeah, it's just awesome. It's just a very unique horror movie that some people might just like put it aside with movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and like Halloween, because like there's a famous monster attached to it, but it's really not that. There's a lot more to it, which really surprised me when I first saw it.
Same here.
It's really like its own unique story about these two characters, about Frank and Julia, like they're kind of like triangle with him and Larry, and it's more about that than it is about the Cenobites and crazy torture, violence and stuff. Though when there is violence, it's really violent. Yeah. This movie doesn't hold back.
No, not at all. When the Cenobites actually do get a hold of Frank, shit gets real.
Yeah.
It's a really, really epic scene. One of my favorite lines in horror movies in general is when he has all these hooks in his face and he's getting pulled apart and he says,
Jesus wept.
And then
it just explodes. It's fantastic.
It's great. Out of 10?
Out of 10, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's deserving of that.
I'm going to go 9 out of 10.
Okay.
Because it's not perfect. Again, like some stuff doesn't like add up completely, like with the story. A few little beats, there don't completely add up. And again, some of the effects kind of falter, especially towards the last act.
Yeah.
Especially stuff like the whole ending of the movie where I guess the house is on fire, but they didn't have the budget to show that, so all of a sudden it just cuts and they're like in like a field of like fire. It's clearly not where the house was. But that stuff aside, it's still a really solid, really good film. So that's the original Hellraiser. And we'll be back with its sequel, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2.
Yeah, which we're really excited to talk about.
Yeah.
So until then, we'll see you guys later.